Hi there. Welcome to the Sober Circle channel. Enjoy this speaker tape.
Well, if you hadn't been up here, don't knock it. May I, before I identify myself, thank the committee for allowing me to come and share with you today. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be invited to do something like this. The fruit is beautiful. The room is beautiful. Then this morning I had this beautiful orchid. Really, you know, just an old drunk like me, we really don't know about all this. I think I've had maybe 2 in my life. Orchids, that is. You know, you gave me something, and this is all I can do is to share today. But before I do that, I've got to get a couple of digs in. Nancy referred to my southern accent. Every way, you know, they talk about that southern gal. I've even had a man to get up in the front and leave the meeting and say, I can't stand it another minute. I've got me a friend over here says it takes 2 takes for her. Guess what, though? I work with some people that you have to give orders over the telephone. And one of the manufacturers is located in Maine. They wrote a letter and they said, please tell that gal to slow down a little bit. So I'm improving. Again, thank you. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Rose Bricken. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous in Montgomery, Alabama. But I was born in Detroit, Michigan. You know, I was so mixed up from the very start, I didn't know it. Until maybe recently, I was privileged to go somewhere, and this required some getting out my birth certificate and so forth. I'd always thought my name was Rose Mary, but I looked down there and it was Rose Margaret. I was born Catholic. They thought I was going to die when I was born, and so they came and they sprinkled a little water on me, you know. My mother and father were divorced when I was 2 years old, and one grandmother wanted me to be a Presbyterian, the other wanted me to be a Catholic. When I married, I went into the Episcopal Church. In my drunkenness, I got married with the Episcopalians. I went back to the Presbyterians. Then when I got sober, I went back to the Episcopal Church. See, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm at. Last night, I wandered around for about 30 minutes, couldn't even find the room. I must need a guardian. Well, you see, I was raised in an era, and there might be a man way back there that says, oh, she's gray-headed. I wonder how old she is. Well, to say a woman's age tells everything. By the insurance people, I'll be 62 in March. Thank you. I was, taught to be seen and not heard. Don't do as I do as I say. I was not allowed to express myself. I went along and I didn't even learn to pick up my stockings off the floor. We didn't wear pantyhose then. We wore stockings. I was just so immature that, it's pathetic. I didn't find the boys till I was 18. A gentleman asked me this morning, is your husband with you? I said, no, I don't have one. I don't believe I've got the sex appeal. Anyway, I didn't learn to do anything. I graduated from high school when I was 16. Not because I was smart. My family did my work for me. They pushed me along. It was depression. They wanted me to go to work. They told me you either go to work or you learn to write on a typewriter. Anybody looking for a job and you don't know how to write on a typewriter, just learn, you can get a job. I've always been able to get one. But that in the meantime, I was working for lawyers, and one was interested in me, and he said, that I needed to make a break for my mother. She thought I was a little girl, and I might still be. Went to Washington, D.C. at age 19. Excuse me, I didn't know the facts of life. I ran into a boy. His name was John. He arrived late one night on a blind date. He was from Montgomery, too. I was crying. I'm the biggest crybaby that ever was. I used to be ashamed of it. No more. I just cry all I want to. He walked over and he kissed me. And I never had seen anybody just like him. Hadn't yet. Not just like him. At 3 a.m. he was begging me to go marry him over in Maryland, and I was begging him to take me home. He said it wasn't safe for me to be out there on the streets of Washington, D.C. He couldn't believe it. In 3 months, we were married. I didn't know what else to say. He went to law school at night. He was a guide in the Capitol building. And he said he just couldn't do all that and court me too. So he didn't know what to do but to marry me. Now, this young man, he loved whiskey. He loved anything that went with whiskey. He liked the gals, and he liked the racetrack, and he just liked the dim lights, And I thought, And he would say to me, you should be a member of the WCTU. Y'all probably don't know what that is. I thought everybody that drank whiskey was going to the devil. You see, he didn't know. I have an uncle. Years ago, families took you in if you had problems. And they took care of you. My grandmother raised me, and she had a son that was known as a drunkard. And I can remember them taking me away from that house at night because he would holler. Have you ever known a hollering drunk? He would curse, and so they'd take the children away. And I didn't want to live my life like that, but I didn't know what to say. Well, I just couldn't accept him like this. And we started to have our babies early. And spoiled as I was, I couldn't stay up there and have the baby like, just somebody that's healthy. I had to go home to my mama.
But this started something in my life that I believe so strong. That things happen like they're supposed to. And they happen at the time they're supposed to happen. I had double pneumonia almost 40 years ago. And I had a little premature baby that weighed 2 pounds, and you could put a head in your hand. And I was in a coma for 12 days, and the Catholic nuns told my John she was going to die. But I didn't. They tried to tell me, you should be a grateful woman. You're leaving with your little baby. But you know, I couldn't hear them. I was listening, but I didn't hear. They were telling me I should be grateful, and I didn't know what the word grateful meant. All I could think about was how many gals was John looking at, and how many times was he going to the racetrack, and what was he doing to me, you know? Me. I had a brainstorm, I thought if I start to drink with this boy, we can work it out. Oh, goodness. I never was a gal that could sit around with a glass and look at it and shake it and say, oh, isn't it pretty? I drank mine out of a little glass like this and took a little water. You know, I drank like a man. This has been one of my problems. I've always wanted to be a man. Why couldn't I do what you men do? And I tried it. And did I get in trouble? And I mean quickly. And isn't it great that it was quick? Now, I don't mean to stand here and say that I only drank a year or two. Oh, no. I went down this road, as we know, called alcoholism. I went to the end, down to the end of the road, with my boy named John. But you know, it's so beautiful, because from the start of my drinking, he said, you don't drink right. There's something wrong with you. Rose, it depresses you. It does something to your brain. Why do you drink? I couldn't answer. You know, I never had enough whiskey. I always wanted some more. By the time I was 22 years old and our second daughter had been born in Alabama, I was working. John always liked for me to work. I wonder if it's any man here today that likes to see his wife work. He wanted me at work. So I had a job, and the little girls were with my mama. And we went out here in Maryland one night on Saturday, and I remember taking the last little drink out of that glass, and the next thing I remember, John ran into a man on the man's side of the road. The officer was going to be nice enough to send this, you know, I was black-headed then. And they were going to send me home in a taxi cab and be nice to me. But soon as I saw them touch him, I called him an ugly name. So they put me in the police car and they took me to jail. And I spent the night in jail. And I would be happy to say, if I could honestly, that that was the only time. That morning that I woke up in that Maryland jail, I was doing my crying, you know. But not only was I crying, I was telling the officer, oh, you don't know who I am. They looked at me like I was crazy because they didn't care who it was. You know, I thought I was really somebody. I really did. But you know, something happened to me that day that I hope I never forget. I knew that I could not drink whiskey. And I did not want to be drunk. But I didn't know that just one drink would do it. And so I had to go. I had to go down this road. And I like to look at it as being stepping stones to where I arrived. I had all the heartache that anybody has. I believe I can match stories with any of you. We didn't stay up there. We had to come back because of my spoilness. When I look back, I don't see how that boy stood me. I not only was a drunk, and I was not a lady, which I had been taught to be, I was a nagger. And I nagged that poor boy to death. And I told him we had to go back to Alabama to live. And so finally, to shut me up, we went. This changed up, and I can remember telling him going down the road, I just can't drink this much in Montgomery. And he would just shake his head. I'm not going to go into all that time. I'm going to ask you to believe me. I was picked up on the streets of Montgomery, Alabama many times for public drunkenness. And you won't believe this, but my father-in-law was a judge. And the officers would take me to his office, and he'd say, I don't want her. Nobody wanted me. You know, about this time things had gone along, and we had 3 little daughters by now, and then we had a little boy. You know, he thought he never would get him a boy. But both he and I have a character. He had it, and I still got it, a character defect called stubbornness. We got that little boy. Here I was trying to keep house for this judge and a sister-in-law and a brother-in-law. And I was trying to be like somebody else. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I was frustrated, and I was drinking and drinking more and drinking more. And all of a sudden the judge tells this boy, you've got to divorce this gal. And he just said, yes, sir. And I can remember the day they moved me out that house just like it was right now. It was just like Grant went through Richmond. I didn't have 25 cents. But they let me have our 2 oldest girls because they said they wanted to go with me. I don't know why, but they did. And my sister-in-law had our little boy and another little girl. Oh, dear. They were going to adopt them. But I got a secret to tell you. If you ever had things like this to come up, don't worry about it. If you get yourself sober, it'll work out. Nobody wants your children. They don't want them. So, see, we got the divorce. We did it all. But, you know, the day we went to the lawyer's office to get the divorce, he talked to us, tried to, and told us he only did it for Judge Bricken, and yeah, you know. We left the lawyer's office together, and we went and got drunk. And I told him, I said, you know, I'm going to get you back. I don't know how, but some way. And, you know, it's just a pity. I'd go off and stay with him, you know, a week or 10 days. Now, you know, all right, that's all right now. People don't think anything about it. But, you know, when I'm talking about, they sort of frowned on bills. My mama would say to me, you know, in the eyes of society, you're not married to that boy. Every opportunity I got, I'd meet him. And I would come back with a black eye, all bruised up, and everybody would say, that boy is so mean to that girl. He wouldn't have harmed a fly. I'd get drunk and fall down. We would have never had one cross word if it hadn't been for me. Okay, about this time, you know, he and his daddy has been reading about Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, I said, no way. Those folks drink coffee and play dominoes. I'm not going down there. But I'm living with my mama, and bless her heart, you know, she just said I was young. I was going to be all right. She kept beer in the icebox for me. And I would, you know, I could get me a job. I'd go in, and I don't know what I'd do, but I'd smile or say something, and they'd give me a job. And right on that typewriter, I came home one afternoon, and St. John had showed himself off, too. He usually was real happy drunk, but one night he got in an argument with a bartender or something, and he showed up with a black eye, and the judge says to him, now, I've had enough of you. Hit the road, bud. But while he was going to decide where he was going, he called up this man that he met in a pool hall. Maybe some of y'all don't like pool halls, but I tell you, I love them. I really do, because this man named Easy found a way, and he told John about it. And John had convinced him that, you know, that I was just too much. Easy said he didn't believe that till he saw me one time. And he said, he was right. Anyway, he met Easy down at this downtown thing, and he told him, he said, Easy, my wife's drinking herself to death, and I wasn't even married to him. Easy had a book under his arm. It wasn't like that book, though. It said Alcoholics Anonymous, but it was bright red, just that red right there, and yellow. I thought, oh. John went on about his way, and he read the book. Easy's an awful smart man. He told him to read it, and he'd find something in there to help him with me, you know. So he read the book, and he said, I knew it. She's the one. She's the fly in the ointment. She's causing all this commotion. He said, I can drink it or leave it alone. Well, you're going to have to excuse me. I'm just nervous. He mailed me that book, you know. And, oh, Lord, I wrapped it up fast as I unwrapped it. One day, I came home from the state of Alabama. That's where it was. I don't know about the North Carolina legislature or the Georgia or the Kentucky, but an alcoholic working for the state legislature in Alabama is just like a hog in heaven. I almost got enough to drink up there. But I came home one afternoon, and my dear little mother was standing there, and she said, you know, the finest looking man I ever saw in my life came to see you today. And I said, don't worry about it, it's somebody I owe. She said, oh no, this man had a lady with him, and she was pretty. And they said they'd be back to see you. I said, don't worry about that. I went in the house, and I was drinking all my beer. You know, the phone rang, and this real Yankee woman says, I understand you have a drinking problem. Oh, dear, I'd already had one beer, and, you know, I got real brave when I had one beer. I told her about it. But can you imagine this? Here I was, sick, not able to take care of myself. not able to take care of our 2 little girls, and my blessed boy and child being taken care of by a sister-in-law. But I was not willing in any way, shape, form, or fashion to admit that there was anything wrong with me. So you can tell from that I had a long way to go. One more thing about the drunkenness, and then we'll get off of it. I arrived at my mother's home at 5 a.m. one morning, drunk as coup de brain. She said, "Young lady, I've had all of you I'm going to take." And I looked at her and I said, "I've had all of you I'm going to take." She didn't ask me where I was going. She didn't care. This is the biggest favor she ever did to me in my life. I went into the telephone and I called up John and I said, "Meet the bus." And I stopped by and I got me 2 or 3 of those little miniatures. You know, I love those little Bibles. And I arrived in Birmingham where he was working, and I got off the bus and he looked at me and he says, "Young lady, I want to tell you one thing I don't want you to ever forget." And I thought, what's coming now? He said, "I kneeled down by the bed last night and I asked God to send you up here, but I didn't know you were coming this quick." He said, "Don't you ever ask for something unless you really want it, Rose." So then I started putting on my old Southern charm, you know, and I begged him to take me over to Georgia and marry me. And, you know, he did because he didn't know what else to do. Okay, so we get back down in Montgomery because I got him fired from his job. And by this time he had got sick and tired of me. And he left me one day, and he knew that I was afraid and I was going to probably go to pieces, but you guess where he went? He went looking up 2 men from Alcoholics Anonymous. And he brought them out there, and they came in, and I didn't want them in my house. Can you believe that? And one man looked at me, and he says, "You'll never get sober in here." And I said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "You've got the shades drawn down." I said, "What does that mean?" And besides that, he gave me a dose of formaldehyde. And it stayed down about 1 split second and came back up, and all I could drink for 2 weeks was condensed milk. So I hated him. Hated him. But you see, I knew that it was time to do something. I had to, because I was going to lose this boy again. And I don't know whether y'all know it, and I don't care, you know, but I'm just telling you. And I just love that boy. You know, we wasn't the kind of boy, girl that you have your flowers and I have my money. And you have your house and I have my car. We were together. Everything was ours. I would take the check home and put my name on it. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that, because it did something to me, but I do thank God that it was ours. We were drunks together. I couldn't go to Alcoholics Anonymous in the right frame of mind at that time of my life. I went down there and I looked up there and it said my life, I'm powerless over alcohol and my life is unmanageable. And it doesn't say it, but I say today, and I can't guarantee my behavior. I didn't know what that meant. Truly, I didn't. I wanted to be able to drink whiskey like I was taught. You know, they said you take a little drink or 2. Even my doctor said this. And then you conduct yourself like a lady. I couldn't do that. But I could not accept the fact that I was so different that I couldn't learn how to. And how could my life be unmanageable when I did most of the work in the family? Because if he was here, he wouldn't mind me saying it. He didn't like to work too much. And I said, I just think I'm a pretty good old gal. So I did not bother with any of the rest of the steps. And he knew if he didn't go with me, I wasn't going to go. So we went. And I'd sit back there and shake a part and think, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to die. I'm going to have a heart spell. But I'd sit through it, you know, and then we'd leave. Guess what? I'm going to have another baby. So I says to John, you know, that's not a place for a lady. So he agreed, and the reason he agreed is that he had gotten a job traveling down to Dothan, Alabama, and he was already drinking. He just didn't want me drinking. He said he knew he could do it. He had a little calendar, and he marked the days off, 6 months. And when Resty was born, you know, he just took me out there. He was furious I had to go to the hospital that night because he had a hangover. And he took me out there, and he said, I'll see you later. And the girl says, and when he was born, would you like for me to call him up? I said, please do. He came out there, and he looked at him, and he says, I got me 3 queens and 2 jacks, a full house. If I had done smart, I'd have asked him for, you know, something good, like a house or something, but I didn't. He was going to reward me, and now I'd been without a drink for about a year. You can call it dry, sober, whatever you want to, but I was happy, the children were happy, and he was happy with me. But he had lost his drinking partner. And so he says to me, I'm going to take you on a little trip, okay? Good. Didn't get outside the city limits. He says, you think you could drink a beer? Well, I didn't answer him. I didn't know. I was just as afraid as I was when I was in that jail. We went on and we drank the beer and stuff. This set up a time of my life that I hope I never forget. Doesn't matter about the time, but it was about, I think, 2.5, 3 years. The only thing that we could talk to each other about was, how do you feel? I couldn't look at the gal that would come to take care of our babies. The state of Alabama fired me and said, have you tried to stop drinking for the person that you love the most in the world? And I didn't have any intestinal fortitude then. And I just looked, didn't say a word. I had tried it and found out it wouldn't work. But you know, you might not believe me, but things don't change. They're going to either get worse or they're going to get better. They got worse. One day, those 4 little children, the little one was 3 years old, came to me and said, you're going to be awful upset and you're going to be just a crying and a crying because you're not going to be able to go to the oldest graduation from junior high school. And I said, please give me a chance. By this time, the girls didn't like me. They did not like me. There was a little boy that was 9 years old, and he'd walk by and he'd pat me, you know, and he'd say, Mama, it's all right. That's the one that was taken away from me. On Wednesday morning, I got up and I washed my hair. You see, I thought I could wash this stuff away. I would take 5, 6, 7 baths some days. I still will take 3 if I can. You can't wash it away. On Friday, I was drunk. And those little children said, it's all right. That little boy told them, Mama's not going to always be this way. She don't mean to do it. I didn't know this. That day, I couldn't keep a drink down. I tried desperately, and it wouldn't stay. That night I couldn't sleep. And I am honest with you when I tell you that I had forgotten the Lord's Prayer. I only asked God to help me when I was in trouble. I was never thankful. I just say, get me out of this, or don't let me die like this, please. But that day, I asked Him to show me the way. And in that night, I think I went as far as I could go. Because I went into the room where John was the next morning and told him what I had done. He said, you are going to embarrass yourself again. You are a hopeless drunkard. You will never get sober. They came to see me. They wouldn't give you a penny for me. The people in the downtown group at Montgomery said, don't fool with her. She's bad news. And I'll tell you frankly and honestly, I had no hope. When I came to you people, there was no hope. I just was willing. I was willing to try. And that was all I had. I said that now, lay me down to sleep, because that was all I could remember. And I could remember my grandmother sitting me up on a table making a cake, and she'd say, Rose down, God is love. And I'd look down. She said, God will always help you. All you got to do is ask Him and thank Him. And I thought about that night. The people from AA invited me to a meeting. As ugly as I had been. You know, I heard a young man talk recently, and he was talking about his church. And he was talking about the problems that some of the churches are having now. And he made a point in this way. He said the church had warts, problems, and difficulties. But even though the church had warts and problems, he loved the church because he loved Jesus Christ. I like to look at me with my warts, with all my frailties, with all the things that I had wrong. You didn't ask me one question. You told me that you love me. I'm not going to say to you that I came in here and I got sober in a flash. I didn't. I'm still working on it, one day at a time. You told me that alcoholism was an illness, progressive, an obsession, an allergy of the body, and in my case, spiritual. So I had a big job on my hands. But something else happened just exactly like it was supposed to. On Thursday, John asked me if this little old job that I had making $30 a week, may I go to the meeting with you tonight? And I said, you may, if you keep your mouth shut. It took a half pint for him to get there. And he was just like me, you know. He loved to talk. You know, you get us sobered up and we don't know when to stop. Never do. Easy told him, said, you better take that woman to every meeting she can get to. He didn't have a job. He was just like somebody with a sign on his back. I'm a good man, but. Easy got him a job, though. But John got me a job. A blind ad in the newspaper. And he told me I better go get it. And I thought, oh, goodness. I went to see the man, and he looked at me. He said, how many children do you have? I said, 5. He said, what does your husband do? And I looked down in my lap, and I thought about those people, and they said, oh, you got to be honest. I said, he's unemployed. He said, you won't do. So I got up to leave, and I turned around for the first time in my life, and I said, will you help me? Will you give me a chance? I'm still there. things don't stay the same. Many things will happen or have happened to me. I read in a little book the other day about the person that doesn't have any problems. You know, they seem to be serene and they go along and everything's fine. The little thing says, you better hold on, because they're going to be there one of these days. Mine started when I had gotten sober and been sober a short while. I'm not going to go into them except for one. I lost my John. He had liposarcoma, and he told the doctors that made him have 2 incurable diseases. And the doctors looked at him and said, what do you mean? He said, man, I'm an alcoholic, and I have been able to find my way a day at a time through Alcoholics Anonymous. He was sick approximately 2 years. I never missed a day of work. Through the grace of God and people like you. The Catholic nun called me and said to come, and she met me in the hall. She said he died like a gentleman. He turned over and went to sleep. Here I was, not knowing what I could do. He had been the one who would tell me, did you hear what they said, Rose? And I'd say, I don't know. He said they were talking about an open mind. That don't mean no hole in your head. He explained to me about God. I don't expect you to think about God in the way I do, and I hope you will not take offense at anything I say. My God is with me all the time. My God accepts me with all my warts and gives me another chance. I have not had what you would call, for me, as immature emotionally as I am, as high-strung as I am, a real easy time. I have made an effort to take it easy. But you see, I get all shook up. And God has protected me. And I have not had a desire for a drink. People like you, people like in Montgomery, people like in Hawaii, Alcoholics Anonymous, you showed me that you love me. You know, one of the biggest thrills that I've ever had in my whole life happened in the last few years. I had a boy that really, I don't know what he did to me, but I almost lost my poise. I walked the floor and I begged God. I didn't just pray, I begged Him. Some of you know Willie. Willie's told me, you and John put something in that boy, it's coming back. The man that I worked with hired him and gave him a chance. He's a great big old 6-foot boy, 6'4". And it doesn't matter who's in that office, he walks in and grabs me and says, I love you, Mama. The grace of God. Undeserved favors. You know, I believe action is the magic word, but I hadn't worked that hard. When I lost John, I hadn't even made a dent in this way of life. And thank you. Some way or another, it got through this little pea brain. You know, I love attitude. I didn't learn about attitude and reactions until recent years. I know I overreact. I try not to, but I do. I know that one of my cloudiest days can be almost sunny if I put a smile on my face. It's the way I go at my life. If I get up in the morning and I ask my God to help me and to guide me and show me the way, when the day is over, it might not be just exactly like I want it, but it has turned out all right. This man told Easy, you know, he says, you will receive whatever you need at the time you need it. I said, he's crazy. But I could stand here for 2 more hours and tell you of all the things that I have received exactly when I needed them. I didn't always ask for them. Like the man told me, you're not indispensable, Rose. And I said, oh. But I got a little thing here that, you know, that tells me that I am indispensable. So long as we love, we serve. So long as we've loved by others, we are indispensable. And no man is useless while he has a friend. I have one more little thing, and then I've got 2 more little things, and then I'm going to let you go. I wanted, you know, for you to hear me that I stay sober 1/2 a day at a time. Because I have some things in my life right now that are very disturbing. You know, you go along and sometimes you don't know it, but you get anxious and you get in a box. And all of a sudden, though, if you're aware and you're looking at your life, you become aware of it, and then you're able to do something about it and able to accept it. I got a boy that lost his confidence when he was about 15 years old. Wasn't arrested, it was another one. That one said, you know, Mama's going to be all right. And he worked with me, and I worked with him, and I found this in the mail. It says it's all in a state of mind. If you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you won't. If you like to win, but you don't think you can, it's almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out in the world you'll find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in a state of mind. For many a game is lost, ere even a play is won, and many a coward fails before even his work is begun. Think big and your deeds will grow. Think small and you will fall behind. Think you can and you will. It's all in a state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can even ever win a prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or the faster. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or the faster man. But sooner or later, the man who wins is the fellow that thinks he can. I think with God's help and with your help and with my 2 gals that came with me with their help, that I'm going to be able to stay sober a day at a time because I want to. Now, so we can all go away from here and laugh a bit, I'm not be serious. I'm going to tell you about a little Catholic nun that was named Rose Margaret. She went in one hot August afternoon to say to get cleaned up, to go say her prayers. And she went over to the dresser, and there was an envelope over there from home. And so she opened it up, and as she opened it up, a $10 bill fell on the floor. So she looked out the window while she was reading the note, and she saw this old fellow out there standing up against a tree. You know, it looked like me when I come home dragging in with that black eye. And she said, "Poor old fellow." And she put the $10 bill in an envelope, and on the outside she said, "Don't despair," and dropped it down. She didn't think any more about it, and she went along her way and went on and said her prayers every day for about 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, she looked up in the chapel, and there was old John. And he walked up, and he handed her an envelope. And she said, "What is this?" He said, "I'm a bookie. You said don't despair. It paid 10 to 1. My rewards are 10 to 1. Thank God for all of you. God bless you. I love you."
Let's remain standing.